I want to welcome everybody. I'm Craig Peterson, ESUCC Cooperative Purchasing Director, and today we have with us Michael Thamantri, who is with Insight. Michael will be your new representative with Insight within the last couple months here. So I reached out to Insight to do a product demo, and they recommended doing something on Singlewire, which they had seen. So today we have with us Brent Kadrowski. Did I butcher it?
You bet. You got it.
So at this point, I guess I'll turn it over to you, Brent, to go ahead and give your product demo. And at the end of this, if we have any questions from those connecting, go ahead and shoot those in the chat window or unmute your mic and ask those. So I'll turn it over to you, Brent. Thanks.
Sounds good. Good morning, everyone. Again, Brent Kadrowski here with Singlewire. Certainly appreciate the opportunity to chat with you folks a little bit about our Informacast product. So work with Insight quite a bit with several different customers, and this was a good fit. And again, I'm happy to be here this morning. So what I'll talk to you folks about is our Informacast product, and really our tagline is keeping people safe and informed everywhere, every time. And what I thought I would start with is just kind of an agenda of what you folks can expect here. So I'll just give you an overview of Singlewire, who we are and what we do. I'll talk about the most common use cases that customers in the K-12 industry look to our product for. I'll talk to you about the feature functionality of our Informacast Fusion solution. I've got a demo for you here this morning so you can actually see the product in action. And then we'll certainly have plenty of time at the end of the hour for some Q&A as well. But as Craig mentioned, if you've got a question as I'm going along, feel free to interject at any time. If you shoot it in the chat window, I'll try to grab it, see it, find it. If I'm not responding to it, just mention something and I'll on the audio, and I'll certainly address it. So no need to keep your questions until the end. I can take them as they pop into your mind as well. So let's get started. So what is Informacast? Just to kind of set the stage, for those of you that aren't familiar, our Informacast product is a safety and alerting software solution that transforms devices on your network into a powerful system for IP paging and emergency alerting. It integrates easily with desktop phones, PCs, overhead speakers, strobes, panic buttons, mobile phones, and more to increase the speed, reach, and success rate of your emergency alert. So we are a mass notification solution. And what is unique about our solution is we do both on-prem and off-prem notification within the same interface. And what do I mean by that is we can send out messages to your phone, your desk phones, your computers, your paging systems, IP speakers, digital signage, as well as mobile phones, text messaging, email, phone calls, all in one application. So that's where the majority of the customers that we work with have interest, is that capability to do both of those functions that are predominantly in separate systems today, all within one system. So that's what we'll be talking to you about here this morning. So what are the use cases? Why would I be interested in something like this? If we kind of look at the bottom left quadrant here of this slide, and you'll notice a lot of these bullets transcend different organizations, but the most common requests that we get for this type of solution are around these following use cases. So customers want to know when somebody dials 911. When somebody dials 911, we can send a message out to folks letting them know which phone dialed 911. Armed intruders or campus lockdowns are very common as well. Customers want a solution so that if they experience that particular situation, they can send out messaging very quickly and easily to, again, all those on-prem and possibly off-prem devices or systems with a simple button press. Severe weather alerts are very popular as well. A lot of our customers will set up different areas that they want to monitor for weather alerts from the National Weather Service when a warning is, or whatever event matches their filter, they can send a message out automatically to folks letting them know that they're having a weather event. And then certainly very popular with our K-12 customers is the bell scheduling capability. Regardless of the intercom system you have today, or whether you're going to have IP speakers, or maybe you want to send the bell schedules to phones or computers, you can do that all centrally with our Informacast software. So if you want, and you can set up different bell schedules for different areas. Elementary bell schedule, middle school bell schedule, high school bell schedule. Maybe you have multiple high schools, depending on the size of your district, etc. Certainly can have multiple bell schedules, but it can be all centrally managed. The other thing that's popular about that is as people move maybe in the district from elementary to middle school or high school or things like that, the bell scheduler interface stays the same across the district. So just another piece of functionality that a lot of our customers like to implement. So what does it look like? So what does a classroom look like when we want to be able to send a notification out to the district? So these are the different devices or systems that we can typically integrate with. So sending messaging to the desk phone, overhead speakers, IP speakers, maybe digital signage, and then on the remote side of things, as I mentioned, we can send messaging out to mobile phones, push notifications, text messages, phone calls, emails, etc. I'll talk a little bit more about that. But that's just kind of what the setting would look like. The other thing that's mentioned on the slide is our ability to integrate with the access control system and locked doors. Very common request we get from our education customers is we want to interface with the access control system because we want to minimize the amount of steps we need to take in a lockdown type situation. What does that mean? Informacast can integrate with the access control system. So you can actually launch a lockdown message off of our app, off of the phone, have that communicate with the access control system and physically put that building in lockdown. We can do it vice versa as well, where the access control system is triggered to lock the building down. That triggers Informacast to send a message out letting folks know that particular facility is in lockdown. So a lot of integration between those two systems, especially with our education customers. So if we take some of those use cases and scenarios and marry them back to the feature functionality that we have in Informacast, these are the typical use cases or implementations that features that we see within Informacast. So just general paging for day-to-day use is very popular with our K-12 customers, where they want to aggregate the communication channels. What does that mean? It means that we can connect Informacast to your phone system as well as the other devices or systems in the district. So when you pick up a phone and dial an extension to page, you can simultaneously page out to your existing paging systems, your phones, your computers, maybe some IP speakers, all at one time. So you don't have to dial into the separate systems to deliver a page out across the district. And it gives you that ability to send a page everywhere in the district if you wanted to. So if you wanted to do a live audio broadcast to the elementary, the middle school, and the high school all at the same time, you certainly could do that. So we're just, again, condensing or consolidating those communication channels for paging. Event-driven notification is where we see the majority of the interest in the product, and it's around a lot of the use cases that I already mentioned. But it's where organizations go through emergency preparedness procedures, and out of that, they define what we call incident response plans. And that's really some fancy jargon for some what-if scenarios. So in the event that you have a tornado warning, here is the message you send to these specific devices or systems. In the event that you have a blizzard warning, here is the message you send to these specific devices or systems. In the event that you've got an active shooter situation, here is the message we send to these specific devices or systems. So it's really going through and understanding what are the scenarios that you feel your district may get impacted by, defining those in the software ahead of time, both from a text and audio perspective, so that in the event that you actually experience that situation, you can quickly and easily send that messaging out with just a simple button press. That concept transcends really all of these types of applications, but the idea is have that messaging created ahead of time so you can quickly and easily send that out. So event-driven notification, common use case. Panic or alert buttons are becoming more and more popular in the classroom as well. I see some RFPs for new phone systems that actually have a requirement that says the phone system needs to trigger a panic, and you need to have a panic button on the phone system, so if there's an issue in the classroom, a teacher can discreetly send a message out. We can integrate with those virtual panic buttons, if you will, on the phones. We also can integrate with physical buttons like you can think of, like under a desk or on a wall or something like that. And there's actually also wearables out there now as well, whether they're pendants or a lot of the access control cards now have buttons on them as well that can trigger a notification. So I do see a lot more requests for panic buttons. And to be clear, we don't manufacture or sell the panic buttons. We just integrate with those solutions in many instances. So, but common use case. I talked a little bit about these automated or device triggered notifications already when I was talking about the integration with the access control system. I did talk about the National Weather Service integration as well. But another thing that I get a lot of questions for, especially from the IT folks within the customer, is IT service outages. We had an example of this about a month ago here at Singlewire. We used Gmail, and Gmail was having a problem. So our IT folks splashed a message out on our desktops and across our phones and said, IT is aware of an issue with Gmail. No need to call the help desk. We're working on it. We'll provide you updates. 10 minutes later, we got another message that said, the issues with Gmail are now resolved. If you still are having issues, please do call the help desk. So it's just another communication tool for those types of communications out there as well. Scheduled notifications I did touch on in the previous slide as well, where I talked about kind of the bell scheduler. That's the most common implementation that we see of our message scheduler. It's all calendar driven and allows you to quickly and easily set up bell schedules, and it also allows you to easily turn them off or change them as well. So that's kind of the high level list of features and specific use cases behind those. If we turn to now, get a little bit out of the feature functionality and just talk about the reach that we have with the platform. So at the top are all the different devices or systems that can trigger a notification. I alluded to some of these already, but we'll just kind of go through that. And we start with desk phones, whether that's a panic button or just dialing an extension. There's an Informacast mobile app that you're going to see here in just a few clicks when I jump into the demo. Panic buttons we talked about. There's a web console and a command center-based application we can use for sending messaging. I'm going to show you that in the interface. It's kind of a question-based menu that a lot of districts that are large enough to have a centralized security office, they will use this so that they can send specific messages to different sites or different locations or different schools. And I'll walk through that here a little bit in the demo. We can send the system an email and have that trigger a notification. We've got an API on the front end of the application where we can interface with upstream systems and have them trigger notifications on our system. I talked about the National Weather Service and physical security system integrations a little bit. And another important feature that I just brushed over was our emergency call alerting and recording module, which allows us to send out a notification when somebody dials 911. We'll talk a little bit more about that on the next slide, so I'll table that one for a second. But then we also interface with gunshot detection systems as well as video surveillance. Video surveillance has been one that's really been popular lately, and the use case behind it is as follows. A lot of our customers that are interested in implementing panic buttons, they want the panic button press to trigger a message to their SROs or their safety folks, but they want to provide them with more information. So what we've done is we can send, when we send that message of the button press, we can include the URL for the nearest security camera, so that when the SRO or your safety and security folks or maybe administration get that message, they can click on the link and then see the actual camera and see what's happening around that scenario. So that is a common request from a functionality perspective that we see as well. So we process all those alerts with Informacast, and we send text and audio to the devices you see there in the bottom of the slide. We send that to the desk phones, computer desktops, IP-based speakers, analog paging systems, digital signage, two-way radios, as well as, again, triggering those physical security systems. Then we can send a push notification to the mobile application that we have. We can send out text messages. We can push messaging to email, both text and audio. We can interface with collaboration platforms like Cisco WebEx Teams or Microsoft Teams. We can push messaging to social media and then just dial typical landline phones or mobile phones and deliver the audio that way. So again, this slide does a pretty good job of covering the reach that we have with the platform, both from message origination there at the top down through to destination at the bottom. I've been babbling here for a while, so I thought I would pause for a second and see if that strikes any questions with you folks, or if you're good so far.
Brent, on the IP phone systems, do they need to be Cisco phone systems? Is that the only one you're compatible with?
They don't. They can be any IP phone system that supports multicast, but it has to be an IP phone system. So other examples of that would be Microsoft's phone system, Fortinet or FortiVoice phone system. The phones that we're typically looking for outside of Cisco would be Polycom or Yealink. But if you have another phone system out there, I certainly would be happy to talk with you about that. All right, hearing no more questions, I shall continue. So this is CallAware. Our CallAware module, now this particular feature, as stated, is a Cisco-specific feature. And what we do is we integrate with the Cisco phone system. When we see somebody dial 911, we can send a message out to folks letting them know that 911 was dialed. Now, we also have this integration with other phone systems as well. What we can't do with those phones is splash the text up on the screen like we can with the Cisco phone, but we still can deliver the message to all of these other devices that you see down here, which is from the previous slide. So the 911 notification is likely going to go to a mobile phone or email or splash up on a desktop. Excuse me, we just can't splash it up on the Polycom or Yealink phones. So I wanted to make that distinction as well, but you still have the base functionality. Mobile capability. A couple of things that are interesting about mobile capability when you use Informacast Fusion. The usual outbound messaging applies, like SMS text messaging, email, push notification to the app, and just dialing phones. But once you integrate Informacast into your environment, you can now send messages from the mobile phone to other phones, but also to all that on-prem infrastructure as well, including your computers, your phones, and your paging system. And what that allows you to do as well is you can literally page to your overhead paging system from your mobile phone. So you no longer need to be in that building or at that location. People who you deem appropriate will be able to page from anywhere with their mobile phone if you so choose. Where that request comes in a lot is planning around things like building evacuations. People don't want to have to walk back into the building to communicate with the building as an evacuation is going on. They want to kind of be able to do it from anywhere. The mobile phone integration allows them to do that. And I'm actually going to demonstrate that for you here in just a few clicks as well. But that's just a kind of an overview of the mobile capability or integration into the system. Another piece of functionality that's worth mentioning is our automatic conference call trigger. This was a direct result of several feature requests from our customers where they wanted to replace their quote-unquote bat phones. And what is a bat phone, as they affectionately term it? A lot of schools would go to a new phone system, but they would have a separate phone system. They'd have two phones on the desk of the principals and the superintendent. And the idea was, if the superintendent picked up the bat phone, it called all the principals' phones and dropped them into a conference call automatically. Well, that's an expensive thing to support, a completely separate phone system. So what we did is we built that into our software. And what's unique about our conference bridge is the fact that it's an outbound call, which means the people who are deemed to be participants in those calls, all they need to do is answer their phone. They don't need to remember the dial-in number. They don't need to remember the bridge number. They don't need to remember their participant ID. They just answer their phone and they get dropped into the call. So for things like this call, it's pretty easy to open your calendar up and you click on the link and maybe type in some information and then dial into the bridge. But if you're in a situation where you're under duress and a lot of things are happening, we think simplicity is easier. So our scenario is we're going to reach out and we are going to call the members of that emergency response team. So there again, all they need to do is answer their phone and they're dropped into that call from any situations that that are specific to emergency messaging or things like I mentioned earlier, severe weather, lockdowns, things like that. So you can create different conference groups for different scenarios if you want to. IoT or Internet of Things, once people put in Informacast, a lot of times they start bolting other systems to it. I mentioned a couple, like the access control system. I have a couple examples, and some of these are not specific to K-12, but to give you an idea, some folks start using Informacast as the centralized notification platform, and they build it into different business processes and workflows. So, for example, we've got a dairy in Iowa. When their ammonia sensor gets too high, it automatically sends an Informacast message out to evacuate the plant. Some folks connect their AED cabinets to Informacast, so if somebody opens the door to go for a defibrillator, it triggers an Informacast message to folks letting them know that that defibrillator was accessed. Some folks have eyewash stations, either in the manufacturing world or in the chemistry lab world, and if that eyewash station gets activated, it sends a message to folks letting them know that that eyewash station was activated, so they can respond quicker. So again, just something to think of. This is more of a what's possible slide, but you may want to think through that ability to bolt other things to Informacast to notify folks when different state changes happen and things of that nature. Last thing I'll talk about before we jump into the demo are IP speakers. We don't sell or manufacture those, but certainly our friends at Insight and Michael can get them for you. But they're kind of the contemporary way that people are doing paging today. And they're just devices that connect to the network. They get their power from PoE switches, and they allow us to send audio to them. And some of them have clocks built into them. Some of them can scroll text. Some of them have strobe lights built into them. And they even have an analog clock that is PoE based, believe it or not. So it gives you that ability. And it actually syncs with the time server, so it stays on time. We've got some different options out there for paging. A lot of times I'll get this request from districts who are building new schools, and they want to put as many things on the IP network as possible to consolidate. Maybe a good option for you. But again, we've got a couple manufacturers there listed on the slide, and just kind of wanted to make you aware that these exist if you weren't familiar. So. That's what I had from a slideware perspective. Now what I'd like to do is jump into the demo. To do that, I need to move some windows around on my desktop. While I am doing that, if you've got a question, feel free to throw it out there. Otherwise, give me a couple seconds and we will resume right into the demo. Oops, wrong room. There. All right, this is one of our demo rooms that we have in our headquarters in Madison, Wisconsin. You'll notice we've got some phones on the wall. We've got some of those fancy IP speakers. We've got some strobe lights, and I got a digital signage board as well. The other thing I'm going to do is drag over my mobile phone, and you'll notice on the top left, I've got my Informacast app. And that moves up here. What I'm going to show you is I'm going to demonstrate how we typically will send a notification out. So you open up the Informacast app. Right now I don't have any notifications, but I'm going to select a new one on the top right. I am going to grab my tornado warning message, and then I'm going to select a distribution list of mobile users to send it to, and the devices there in the room as well. Now, in many instances, you're going to have these hard-coded for the specific scenario, so it's going to be select the message and go. but you do have options to change that around as well for your more sophisticated users. And I also just need to do that so I can demonstrate it. But I'm going to select the building 3 all users and the device groups, which is building 3 all devices, and I'm going to send it.
Warning, there is a tornado in the area. Please take cover immediately.
So you heard the audio come out the phones and the speakers there in the room. It's my video feed is a little delayed, I see, so the video is not coming through right now, but it will here in a second. And it's going to trigger the strobe lights as well as it's going to display that message across the IP speakers. Again, the audio came through, but the video is a little lagging here today for some reason. And then you'll notice it's triggering the strobe lights in that speaker as well. Sent the message to the digital signage, and then it popped up on the display of the phones there as well. The other thing that happened is I got the message on my mobile phone, and then I also got a message that popped up on my other computer monitor that sent the text and the audio of that message as well. So what I'm going to also show you is some things we can do when we receive that notification. We have something called confirmation. So if I click on this message on my mobile phone, it talks about that in the first sentence there, but it also says tornado warning, please take cover immediately. And then it also has the audio of the message.
Warning, there is a tornado in the area. Please take cover immediately.
So that is that audio is sent to the mobile device. It's the same audio that you heard come off the phones and speakers there in the room. Let's scroll back up and look at confirmation. So I click on confirm, and I can prompt users with different confirmation responses. So I'm going to say, I need assistance urgent. And now I confirm that. Now I can go in and I can look at the statistics of that message. I can click on it, I can look at statistics, and it's going to tell me how people are responding. Now you didn't see anybody in the room there clicking respond buttons and things like that, so I'm the only one who responded for demo purposes. And you can see that somebody is represented there with the green on the pie chart. If I scroll down, I see that one person said, I need assistance urgent, and I can view that, and you'll see it's me as a user. The concept behind this is, if you're going to send emergency messaging out, and then you want to keep tabs on the people that need assistance, let's quickly drill down into the 1,000 people that we sent this message to and find out which ones need assistance. So the idea is, if you send it out to 1,000 people, hopefully 990 respond back that I'm okay, or so we don't worry about them anymore. But a few people responded back, I need assistance non-urgent, or I need assistance urgent. By the way, those categories are completely customizable on a message-by-message basis. But now I can resend a message to people based on how they respond. So I can click send next to I need assistance urgent, and I'm going to send a message, but it's only going to go to the folks that responded in that capacity. So now I can communicate with them, and things like, please call this number, which is our hotline that we set up for these types of emergencies, or you can literally drill down into each person and get information, and now find out what their email is, find out what their mobile number is as well. So now you could actually call them if you wanted to as well. So you have both, you have that information that you need to actually deal with those particular individuals there, again, based on how they respond. So we think confirmation is a pretty big deal from a feature perspective when it really comes into managing the actual situation. Any questions on that? Okay, the other thing that I wanted to show you was how we can actually page to the room as well. So I am going to start a new message here. I'm going to do audio only page. I am located today I am in St. Louis, Missouri, and this demo room, as I mentioned, is actually in Madison, Wisconsin. But I'm going to select just the devices there in the room, and I'm going to show you how I can page to those devices. This is an example of paging from St. Louis to Madison. So I just recorded that, and I click send. So you heard that audio come out the phones and the speakers there in the room. So that is what I wanted to show you as it relates to how we can send messaging from the mobile phone to different devices across around your district. The last thing that I wanted to show you was how our command center application works. Again, I apologize, the video is really lagging on this. I don't know if I've got a bandwidth issue or what, but you heard the audio come through, but the video feed is really behind. I want to transition over into the application and just kind of show you what we do from a command center perspective. So I'm going to log into the application. Oh, I know why the video is delayed. I got a real bandwidth issue in my office here. I thought I typed that wrong. So this is the application, the web application. As I mentioned, we have something called Command Center, which allows us to present folks with an interface to make it really easy to answer a couple questions, which we call scenarios, and send a message out. So if you've got folks that may have to answer a couple questions and then just send a message out, they can do that. And what else this allows you to do is send a message through answering one question. I'm going to send one message to the security group and one message to the general all users, but I'm going to do that with just one button press. So let's do fire alarm. So I'm going to click on fire alarm. It's going to say, where is the fire? I select the drop down here. I'm going to say site 3. I'm going to click review because that's where it is. And notice there's two different messages going out. I could change these, make some changes to this, but one goes to general staff, one goes to security, and I'm going to click send.
Fire alarm has been triggered.
Okay, you heard the audio come out the phones there and phones and speakers in the demo room, and then you'll also see that it's scrolling across the phones and the speakers and got popped up on the digital signage. What you'll notice is this message says fire alarm in progress at site 3. Please evacuate the facility. That is sent to your general users. But my phone was in the group from the that was in the security group, and if I click on that message, it says fire alarm in progress at site 3. Please respond accordingly. So the messaging is different based on where you want it to go for different folks. So if you do want to mix that up a little bit, depending on your scenarios, you can do that. So you'll notice that the messaging is different there. All right, well, I'll tell you what, folks, that's what I wanted to show you here this morning. I just wanted to kind of go through a brief overview of the Informacast solution. I wanted to jump into a demo. I certainly have time for questions. If you've got a scenario you want to throw past me, or you've got a technical or operational question, I certainly can answer them.
Any questions? I have thrown in the chat window there some information to Insight contact information. So if you're looking for pricing or anything like that, you can reach out to Michael for that.
Yeah, I got a question. What's the planning process? How do we initiate the conversation with you or others in terms of setting this up and going, taking the next step?
Yeah, that's a great question. So as Craig said, you can certainly work through Michael to say, hey, we have some interest in this. What typically happens in these scenarios is you'll get a group of stakeholders within your district that you want to show this to. So we'll schedule another overview and demo of the solution. We'll identify your use cases that are interesting to you, and then talk about the different devices and systems that you have interest in sending messaging to. Once we get that defined, we can move right to a pricing exercise after that.
Very good. Thank you.
You bet.
Any other questions? If not, I appreciate your time, Brent and Mike, for connecting today. And if we have any additional questions, you can reach out to myself or Michael, and we'll get you in contact with the right people then. Thank you.